want to give a huge warm welcome. Please join me in welcoming my friend and former colleague, Vladimir Agafonkin, who's joining us today from Kyiv, Ukraine. Hi, Vlad.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Thank you.
We are so excited to have you. Thanks so much for joining us today. So we used to work together at Mapbox, so I know you, but perhaps you could give everybody else on the call a little bit of a hello, let them know maybe a little bit about you, like what do you do for work, what do you do for fun?
So I'm probably most known in the community for creating Leaflet 11 years ago, and I've been in the mapping industry for 12 years now, but out of them, 7 years, I've been working at Mapbox, mostly focusing on algorithms and performance and making fast vector maps. And outside of work, I'm a father of 6-year-old twin girls, which might barge into this room at any moment, start screaming and running around and laughing, and you'll probably hear them in the background.
We hope they do. We love that. We love kids and pets in the meetups. More kids and pets, I say.
Okay. And I'm also a rock musician. I'm leading a rock band. So we recently released a music video, and I'm pretty proud of what we've done so far.
Yeah, if folks haven't heard Vlad's music, check them out. Maybe folks can find you on Twitter and find some of your videos linked there. And we'll share a bunch of links in the chat and after the meetup. So awesome. And I think you've been an Observable user way longer than I have. I just joined the team a month or two ago, and you've been using Observable for what, a couple of years now?
Yeah, I think from the very start, like when I saw the presentation by Mike Bostock about the new generation coding environments, I think it was called differently back then. I don't remember the old name, but I was super impressed. And although for the first year or more, I've been mostly looking at other people's visualizations, but then I started it bit by bit for simple stuff, like exploring some algorithms, some concepts, doing some debugging tools, and I started enjoying it more and more, and started building more and more sophisticated notebooks. And now I'm checking Observable almost daily for new cool stuff, and really often I'm building something for myself too there.
Awesome. Yeah, no, so I'm a huge fan of your notebooks. I don't know if some other folks have seen your stuff, but they can check out your work on Observable. You have several collections and they're really awesome. I think today we would love to hear a little bit more about this series of kind of more personal notebooks that you've been creating. I know at Mapbox, for example, when we were working on some algorithms and stuff like that, you made lots of cool notebooks for work, but these ones that you've been creating about kind of problems or questions from your everyday life are really fascinating. So could you tell folks a little bit about how have you been using Observable to answer questions from your everyday life?
So yeah, at first I've been using it mostly for work things, but then I get really excited when I'm able to apply some of my math and coding skills to my everyday life problems. And at some point, I just realized that Observable is a perfect platform for that, because it's so easy to tinker with things, try out different things, visualize different bits, and so build some kind of story around it, make interactive articles with this. Yeah, I started doing this not so long ago, at the end of the past year. And I think I want to talk about the first notebook that kind of started it all for me, like this notebooks for life thing.
Awesome.
And that's
yeah. No, that sounds great. Let's take a look, shall we?
Yeah, I'll now share my screen.
Awesome.
Let me see. Okay. Can you see it?
Yep, we got it.
Okay, so yeah, most of my notebooks are some work-related algorithmic stuff, database, maps, but my most popular notebook is this Martini thing for like simplification of terrain meshes. But I also have this collection of personal notebooks. Some of them are private, so because I didn't yet polish them enough to share, but I'd like to like show a glimpse of it today. And the first one I want to talk about is uh, reverse angle parking notebook. So this one has a backstory. I'm a beginner driver, and my wife is also a beginner driver. We just like bought our car last year, and I just got a driver's license a few months ago. I know that most Americans, they like learn to drive when they're babies, but I like so far avoided doing this, and now I'm like a really big newbie when it comes to all things driving, and it's especially challenging to park with a car when you're starting out. At home we have this parking lot that we got, which looks like this. I was surprised to discover that this scheme, which is called back-in angled parking, it's not common in the US, and it's more common in Europe, and it's very common in Ukraine. So it looks like this. You're driving forward, and then you back out at an angle. And this is the best photo I could find of our parking lot, and it's not fully representative because like you don't see many cars here for some reason, but usually it's fully parked. Like all those spots are taken, and we have one of those spots for us. And you can notice that the driveway here is super thin. Like it's really hard to just drive through it. And if you're a beginner driver, like backing at an angle and getting to an exact spot between two neighbor cars in a very tight spot, it's super challenging because it's like a very small difference, like 10 centimeter error could mean a difference between like parking your car and spending a day with the car insurance company and an angry neighbor.
Totally. I mean, I've been driving more than half my life, and I think that would be a big challenge for me too.
Yeah, you can see those like metal boards on the right. So you don't have any room on the right. You don't have any room on the left because there are cars parked there. And yeah, it's just very hard. So I decided to solve this problem with mathematics, and the more I thought about it, the more exciting it became. I remember that night when I decided that after like half an hour of very difficult parking where we kind of wiggled back and forth for a very long time to get the car into position, not bump into anything, I decided to solve this with mathematics. So the first thing I did that day is I took a tape measure and went out to this parking lot and started measuring like everything, measuring the road width, the parking lot width. I made a photo to measure the angle of those parking lots. And I came back and I started a notebook. I usually started with an empty canvas like this, and like defined a few parameters that define the parking lot. And after some time like fiddling with canvas code and using those parking dimensions, I got this like visualization of the parking lot that I have, like with real dimensions from our situation. Then I wanted to put a car on it and see like how I would get into position and if it was possible at all, because it seemed impossible to me at the time, like almost to park easily. So I started Googling how to model car movement, and I stumbled upon a few articles. One of them, like here, it's about Ackerman's steering model, which is like kind of a simplified model for describing the movement of cars, which is very common in like video games. So this has like this kind of cool interactive bit where you can drive around with this model. And I decided to do something similar in the notebook. So I Googled for my car model and found exact dimensions, because every car has some specifications. So like things like width, wheelbase, and like things like this. And based on that, I started trying to like visualize this like some kind of a car on this parking lot. So I'll try to jump through the history here. So yeah, after some attempts, I got a kind of a rectangle and some movement pattern going here. And I had a lot of attempts, but it's very easy to iterate on something like this. I got this at like iteration 100 something. So my next like big milestone was when I got this, like I turned one of the constants into an input, and I could start playing with this somehow to see how like turning the wheel would affect the movement of the car, to understand how to get it into a position into one easy movement. And then I spent some more time like visualizing the actual like trajectory, including the whole car, to see whether it would bump into anything. So you can see here that like with the current position, it will bump into those metal boards. So I kept iterating on this until I got all the different positioning parameters as inputs, and I could kind of adjust it and see that actually it seems like it's possible to park there. It's challenging, but I just tried to like kind of get like uh, a model of actions where I could just turn my wheel to the max, and then put the car in a certain position, and then not think about like car dimensions, not look into like mirrors too much, because I still don't have this like sense of car movement in space. So I could just turn to the max and back down, and it would just slip into the slot. So after I realized that according to this visualization, it is possible, and I figure out how exactly it is possible. So when you're sitting here and you see the line of the next parking lots staring at you, then you can just turn your wheel to the max and back down, and it just slips exactly into the parking lot. And like this realization, and when we like try this on practice later, it made me super happy, because it's not very often where when you like apply data visualization and mathematics to solve such a like a trivial life problem. So when I got this worked out, I just started putting like building some narrative around it and writing out like some details, links, and I got an interactive article about how I solved my parking problem.
This
So
is so cool, Vlad. Oh my gosh. And so how's your car looking? Dent free, I hope.
yes, so far we've been able to avoid all the bumping at the car, and so yeah, it became much easier after we realized that it's actually possible, and like got some pointers into how to do it with this visualization.
Awesome,
Uh,
awesome. I love what we've been looking at here. So what you've been stepping us through to kind of recreate your process with this notebook was going through that history view in the right panel, right?
Yeah,
You're showing us like previous versions of the notebook.
yeah, it's really cool to jump through the history steps and see how the notebook evolved. And I am kind of bummed that most of the history is like the history is usually private on the notebooks. I would love to see how notebooks evolve, like notebooks of other people. Maybe it would be cool to introduce a feature where you could pin specific versions of notebooks in the history and make them public, so that people could jump through the history.
Aha, yes. We are hard at work on lots of features to make it more easy to kind of collaborate and share, like iterate on work with other people across Observable. So that is amazing feedback. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is fantastic. I love this. Oh, you can even make it for different sizes of car and whatnot if you upgrade,
Yeah.
buy a big Chevy or something.
Yeah, so I entered like exact dimensions for my car, and then I checked some other dimensions, and turned out that it's like if we had a bigger car, we would probably not make it in this car lot.
Time to move to somewhere with bigger driveways. No, just kidding. Awesome. Well, this is so cool. This is like, I mean, you've really gone above and beyond here with exploring like your real world surroundings visually in Observable, and then also just writing it up so beautifully and sharing it with all of us. Thank you so much for giving us insight into how
Yeah,
you came
thank
up with
you.
all this.
Okay, so the next notebook that's I've been using almost daily before the lockdown happened is this workout consistency hit map. So I've been doing strength training like for years intermittently, and sometimes doing very long multi-month breaks. And I realized that like this was my biggest problem, not being consistent with like just showing up at the gym twice or three times a week and working out. And like this was preventing me to reach my like, health goals. And I decided to like motivate myself and build this visualization. It shows 4 years of me tracking workouts on a service called Strength Level, which very conveniently provides an expert feature. So there is a button here. Okay, expert CSV. So you can download it, and I upload it to the notebook, and I visualized all my like workouts here, and I visualized it in a way that when I work out, it's green, and while the muscles build like during the several days after that, it's still green, but then it starts to slowly go into red as the more and more days pass since your last workout. And that way I can easily see like when I've been losing a lot of muscle and when I've been building a lot of muscle. So you can see that for the last 5 months before the lockdown, I've been pretty good at consistently working out. And then the lockdown happens, and now I am confined to doing some push-ups and squats with my kids on my back, which is not ideal, but at
I
least
mean, that
something.
sounds strength building for sure.
Yeah. And also, I've been keeping another notebook, which I'm consulting daily when I'm working out, which is like this. I'm doing a specific program for strength training, which is called 531. And it has certain formulas for like which weights you need to do for which exercises based on your goals. So you have some like existing weights you're working with, and it calculates like based on certain percentages, like what exercises you need to do and with how many reps. And I made this kind of table and I always know like what I need to do. And it's much easier than a spreadsheet, which is usually used here because like it's mobile. It's easy on mobile. I can adjust the layout very quickly, add some more stuff. I can add some interactive features in the future. And a few more. So this is my steps count. So iPhone tracks your steps, and you can export this in Apple Health application, and you can load this XML file that's its experts and parse it and calculate how many steps you did every day. So I visualized all my steps in how many for 6 years, and you can see like some patterns here. Like here. Like springtime is kind of a vacation and nice weather time when I'm always walking a lot, and you can clearly see when the lockdown happened. So I'm mostly not moving because I'm confined to my apartment. I haven't been out much. Although it's nice to see that there's at least some movement on the weekends. At least it indicates that I'm moving with my phone between rooms, which is nice.
Awesome.
And
Wonderful.
yeah. Okay, I think we're running out of time. But yeah, one more is I visualized my Kindle reading time. And I did, like, Kindle doesn't provide statistics for that, but Amazon has this feature when you can request all the data they have on you for privacy reasons, and like you wait a month and then they send you like this whole big archive of all the data. And you can find data about like when you clicked turning the page on Kindle books. So I did this like little histogram, and it turns out that I have like this range of times when how much I'm reading a particular page, which is kind of useless but still a fun exercise.
Wow, so cool. Look at all of these data sets that like I don't know if I personally I feel like I'm not super conscious about like wow, there's all these data sets around like me and my habits and my lifestyle, but it seems like a lot of these tools allow you to maybe export a CSV or export an XML file like you were saying, and then you can upload that right in Observable and check it out. That's super cool how you've done this.
Yeah. And now I'm always trying to think of some data I can gather about myself. Now I'm planning to order like a Fitbit tracker to gather more data and somehow visualize it on Observable. This last notebook I want to show is the winters in Kyiv, which shows that our last winter was the most snowless on record. And I've also been able to find which winters were the most memorable in my childhood, but I wasn't sure which age I was back at the time, and some other cool observations which you can read here. Yeah, that's it. I'm not sure if we have time for questions.
Okay, Jesharun asks if you can tell us the story behind your microphone.
Okay, so I'm a musician. I always wanted a cool condenser microphone for home recording, so like doing drafts of songs I write to share with my bands while we build out like our material. So I got it last year. I love it so much. It's blue microphone, and it's so beautiful that we used it on our last video just because it looks so cool, and it has quite a nice sound. So I'm happy that I got it.
Awesome. I'm going to try and dig up that link and to the video and post it in the chat if folks want to rock out to your band after the meetup. And one more question from Gennady, who asks if there are any plans to integrate your Martini algorithm, the terrain mesh algorithm that you showed at the beginning, if there are any plans to integrate that to become part of Mapbox.
I can say for sure that there will be huge 3D features coming to Mapbox. I can't say if it will be Martini based because like there's a lot of changing right now. Like we're experimenting a lot, building a lot of things, trying out the best ways to do that. But 3D terrain is happening at Mapbox definitely, and you will hear from us more soon about that.
Haha, exciting times. So suffice it to say, you're hard at work on it. The algorithms are evolving, and it's going to be really cool. Well, I think we need to wrap up and move on to our other speaker, but thank you so much, Vlad, for sharing all of this. This has been such an interesting look at like how you've managed to really tie data and these observable notebooks back to the real world and like things around us. And it's really inspiring from my perspective. So I hope some of our viewers today are also inspired. Where can folks reach out to you if they want to follow you or keep up with what you're working on?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on GitHub. Please reach out. I'm available.
Mourner on all of the things, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Vlad. And please join me, everybody, in thanking Vlad for sharing all these wonderful personal notebooks with us. Thanks
Thank you.
again.